Hey there, welcome back to another episode of JRCtv. This week we're talking about how to fail your way to success.
To the podium, Mr. Jairek Robbins.
Now, when talking about failure, there's three things that will teach you some of the most important lessons in life: a hungry stomach, an empty wallet, and a broken heart. Now, I know that's very motivating and exciting to start this week's episode with, but there's truth in that. If you've ever had a moment, and I sure as heck have. I remember, one time where I was in college, I came home to my apartment and I checked the mail and I had a bunch of bills and I checked the bank account and there was a lot more bills than money in the bank account. And I remember being like, oh no. And it wasn't like a little bit off. It was like $50 compared to $2,000 off. It was like, whoa. And there was no feasible income coming in the range these bills were due. And I remember literally having like my stomach turn upside down, butterflies in my chest, being like, oh shoot, like I really messed this one up this month. That'll teach you a lesson like anything else. It'll teach you how to prepare for the future. It'll teach you how to organize yourself. It'll teach you how to really make sure you don't do that again. Hopefully, not everyone learns the lesson the first time. Not only that, I remember, times in my life where, and I hate to bring these memories up, but I'm sure you've had a time too where you had a heartbreak. I remember in high school crying myself to sleep and waking up still feeling sad because I broke up with a girlfriend at the time, and it was pretty heartbreaking and sad at the time. But I remember learning from that experience and trying to figure out, what happened? What did I really learn in that process? How could I grow from this? How could I improve the next time around to make sure it doesn't hurt as bad that time, or a way to make sure that I'm better prepared for what might occur? So there's questions you can ask that can prepare you, and we're going to put some of those in today's download, so you want to make sure to grab that. And then finally, a hungry stomach. I know I've had days and times, and luckily, thank goodness, knock on wood, I grew up in a very privileged position where both of my parents worked extremely hard in different ways to make sure that I never had nights where I'd go to bed hungry. But I know all around the world there's places where people do have that. And those nights where there are no food. And I remember one of my closest friends in San Diego, he told me, he said, some of the biggest lessons I learned, he said, when I was 13 years old walking around town, and he's like, dude, $1 would have changed my life on that day. I said, what do you mean? He's like, I just wanted a burrito, and I'm pretty sure I could get one at the store for $1, and I just didn't have $1. And I said, well, what'd you learn from it? He said, I learned I had to be hungry in life. And I started laughing. I said, no, what does that really mean to you? And he said, I learned to be hungry enough, to work hard enough, to never have a day in my life again that I'll ever have to have that feeling in my stomach ever again. And hopefully work hard enough that no one that I care about will have to have that feeling either. I was like, wow. And so what's interesting about this is looking at these moments of failure, when things don't work out, when things fall apart, when things aren't going the way you want. There's one key consistent element in all these stories that allow it to serve you instead of break you. And the one key element is something that an author of a book called Mindset, her name is Carol Dweck, she's a researcher, and she found out there's something called a growth mindset. Now, in today's download, we're going to give you a bunch of key factors that a growth mindset has with it. We've talked about this before. If you want to hear a whole episode on this, just Google growth mindset, Jairek Robbins, and I'm sure other JRCtv episode will pop up that we talked about it on. And a growth mindset, one factor that it believes is failure is part of the process. Failure in your relationship is part of the process. Having times when it breaks down and it's not what you imagined it would be is part of the process. Having times in business where you go out and you give your best effort and it doesn't work out, part of the process. Having times in your health where you work really hard and you don't get the result you want, or you hurt yourself, ouch, failure, part of the process. And so what's interesting is part of that process allows you to stay centered, to stay strong and stay grounded when it happens and go, part of the process. But you can't just go, part of the process, and keep doing the same thing and keep having the same failure over and over again. That's a definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Meaning if every time you go about doing it, you always fail, you need a new strategy. And so this is interesting because failure is part of the process, but not failing at the same thing over and over again. I remember I met a lady a long time ago, and she told me, listen, sometimes when you run into a brick wall in life, there's usually 3 signals that life tried to send you before you actually had everything fall apart. The first thing life sends you is a whisper, a little hint, a little soft intuition feeling that says, hey, you might need to update your strategy. And most people go, whatever, and keep going. And then eventually life takes a brick and it just throws it at you. And it says, hey, update your strategy. You're like, ow, that kind of hurt, but I bet if I just keep going, I bet it'll work. And some people keep letting it happen long enough that it burns everything down in your life. What does that look like? Your marriage falls apart. Your business goes bankrupt. You go to the doctor and they say, hey, you have so many days, weeks, or months to live. That's life going, hey, pay attention. You need to update your strategy. That's the extreme example. I always tell people, listen to the whispers of destiny because they're really, really useful if you hear them. And the key with this that you want to remember, in listening for the whispers of destiny, you want to teach yourself to listen to your intuition. Our friend Gabby Bernstein, who's been a guest on JRCtv, she talks about listening to your inner guide and how to declutter your mind and emotions and spiritual side of yourself to become more in tune with your intuition. It's a beautiful book she's written on that process. So with that in mind, what you want to do is you want to be really in tune with your gut so that you hear the whispers when life throws them your way, and you can allow them to guide you through the process of when you need to update your strategy and when you need to stay persistent. The key here is, though, throughout the process, whether it's staying consistent and persistent or it's updating the strategy, either way, there's one truth to be told. And the one truth to be told is you need a growth mindset if you're going to claim that victory in the end. So I highly recommend to go grab a copy of Carol Dweck's book called Mindset. I highly recommend to download the worksheet today. The reason I point down is hopefully it's on the blog here. You want to download today's worksheet, and you want to answer a handful of questions on there to help you figure out if you have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. As well, we give you a link to a website that Carol Dweck created on how to shift your mindset from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset if you happen to be caught up in a fixed mindset. Have fun with this. Go apply it. Share it with other people. You know, we have a philosophy of learn what it takes, live it, and apply it yourself, and give it, pay it forward. So make sure you pay this forward to friends and family who you believe it could benefit. Have fun with this. I look forward to seeing you next week with another episode of JRCtv.